There is a version of you that keeps walking into the same room over and over again, expecting a different door to open, different face, different voice, different name written on the coffee cup. But somehow, the ending is always the same. The same silence after an argument, the same feeling of being almost loved, but never quite chosen. The same slow realization 3 months in, 6 months in, 3 years in, that you are once again sitting across from someone who cannot give you what you actually need. And the strange part isn't that it happened once. The strange part is that some part of you recognized the pattern the moment it began and walked toward it anyway. This isn't a story about bad luck. It isn't a story about meeting the wrong people at the wrong time again and again, as if the universe were playing some cruel joke on your love life. What if the pattern isn't happening to you at all? What if something inside you is choosing it, quietly, before your conscious mind even gets a vote? That single idea is uncomfortable enough to make most people close the tab. But if you stay, you're about to understand something Carl Jung spent his entire life trying to explain. Something that psychology still hasn't fully caught up to. Because the people who hurt you were never really strangers. Somewhere in the architecture of your mind, you already knew them. Picture the last person who left you feeling smaller than when you met them. Try to remember the very first conversation, not the bad months later, the first conversation. Chances are, it didn't feel like danger. It felt like recognition. A kind of pull that felt almost involuntary, like your nervous system had been waiting for exactly this person to walk in. That feeling has a name, and it isn't chemistry in the romantic sense most people assume. Jung called it projection, and it is one of the most quietly devastating mechanisms in the human mind. Long before you consciously evaluate someone, your unconscious has already scanned them for familiarity. Not familiarity in the sense of comfort, but familiarity in the sense of pattern. Your nervous system is not looking for someone safe. It is looking for someone who fits the emotional shape it already knows how to survive. This is where psychology becomes uncomfortable, because it means the chaos you keep attracting was never random. It was engineered quietly by the earliest relationships you can barely remember. Think about the last time you felt truly at peace with someone, and be honest about how rare that memory actually is. For many people, peace doesn't feel like love. It feels like boredom. It feels suspicious, even slightly unsettling, as if something is missing. Meanwhile, tension, longing, the ache of almost but not quite, that feels like the real thing. That confusion is not an accident of taste. It is a nervous system that learned very early to associate love with effort, with distance, with earning affection rather than receiving it freely. Jung believed that every child forms what he called imagoes, internal images of the people who raised them, built not from who those people actually were, but from how the child experienced them emotionally. A parent who was inconsistent, warm one day and cold the next, doesn't just leave a memory, they leave a template. And that template becomes the invisible measuring stick against which every future connection is unconsciously compared. This is the part most people never notice. You are not falling for a person. You are falling for a frequency, a rhythm of closeness and withdrawal that your body already recognizes as what love feels like, because it is the only frequency it was ever taught. But here is where it gets even more unsettling, because recognizing the pattern from childhood is only the surface layer. Something deeper is happening, and it has almost nothing to do with what happened to you and everything to do with what you decided about yourself because of it. Alfred Adler, who worked alongside Freud before breaking away to build his own school of thought, believed that every human being develops a story about their own worth extremely early in life, often before the age of 6. Not a story they can recite, but a felt conclusion buried below language. Something like, "I am only valuable when I am useful," or "Love has to be earned through suffering," or the quietest and most destructive of them all, "I am not the kind of person who gets to be chosen easily." Once that belief exists, the unconscious mind doesn't try to disprove it, it tries to confirm it. This is one of the most well-documented tendencies in cognitive psychology, known as confirmation bias. But very few people apply it to their own emotional life. Your brain is not a neutral observer collecting evidence about whether you deserve love. It is a loyal employee of a belief system installed in early childhood, and it will quietly filter, distort, and interpret entire relationships just to keep that belief system intact. So when someone kind and consistent appears, your mind doesn't relax. It becomes suspicious. It scans for the catch. It sometimes manufactures conflict out of nothing, because peace doesn't match the internal story. But when someone unpredictable, emotionally withholding, or subtly dismissive appears, something in you exhales, because finally, here is a situation your identity already knows how to explain. This is the moment where most self-help content stops, offering a simple solution: choose better, set boundaries, know your worth. And none of that is wrong, but it is incomplete because it treats the mind as if it operates entirely in the present, when in truth, it is running an old program written by someone who no longer has any power over your life. Something even more dangerous is happening beneath the surface, and it has to do with a part of the psyche Jung considered one of the most important discoveries of his career. Jung called it the shadow, the collection of everything about ourselves that we were taught was unacceptable to feel, to want, or to express: anger, neediness, jealousy, ambition, even our own darkness. Children learn extremely quickly which parts of themselves earn love and which parts earn punishment or withdrawal. The parts that earn punishment don't disappear. They go underground. They become the shadow. Here is the unsettling part. Jung believed that we don't just repress our shadow. We unconsciously seek it out in other people. We are drawn, almost magnetically, to individuals who express the very traits we buried in ourselves. If you were taught that anger was dangerous, you may find yourself pulled toward people who are comfortable with rage, almost as if some part of you wants to witness what you were never allowed to feel. If you were taught that needing anyone was weakness, you may find yourself entangled with people who need nothing from anyone, people whose emotional unavailability feels disturbingly like strength. This is why the same type of painful relationship can wear different faces and still feel eerily identical. It was never about the person. It was about which unclaimed part of yourself they were mirroring back to you. And this is where the pattern deepens into something almost tragic, because the relationship itself becomes a kind of unconscious ritual, not one you would ever choose with open eyes, but one your psyche stages anyway, hoping that this time the ending will be different. This time, the withholding parent will finally stay. This time, the inconsistency will resolve into safety. Freud called this the repetition compulsion, and it may be one of the most quietly heartbreaking discoveries in the history of psychology. We do not repeat painful patterns because we enjoy pain. We repeat them because some part of us is still trying to master an old wound the only way it knows how, by recreating the conditions of the original injury and hoping, against all evidence, for a different outcome. This explains something that confuses almost everyone who has lived through it. Why does the ending always feel so familiar, even when the person was new? Why does the grief feel less like losing someone and more like losing something you never actually got to keep the first time? But even this isn't the deepest layer, because underneath the repetition, underneath the shadow, underneath the childhood imago, there is something even more fundamental at work, something that reaches back further than psychology and into biology itself. Evolutionary psychology offers an uncomfortable but clarifying lens here. The human nervous system was never built to prioritize happiness. It was built to prioritize survival, and for most of human history, survival meant staying attached to whoever raised you, regardless of how they treated you, because abandonment as a child meant death. This means your nervous system learned, at the deepest possible level, that proximity equals survival, even when that proximity comes with pain. As adults, we like to believe we are choosing partners based on compatibility and values. But underneath that rational layer, an ancient survival circuit is still running, one that mistakes intensity for importance, and mistakes emotional unpredictability for meaning, because unpredictability once required vigilance, and vigilance once felt like connection. This is why walking away from someone who hurts you can feel, physiologically, like withdrawal from a substance. Neuroscience research on attachment has found that inconsistent reward, receiving affection unpredictably rather than reliably, activates the brain's dopamine system even more intensely than consistent reward does. This is the same mechanism that makes slot machines more addictive than a guaranteed payout. A partner who is warm sometimes and distant other times isn't just difficult to leave. Neurologically, they may be harder to release than someone who was steady and kind the entire time, because the unpredictability itself becomes the hook. So when someone says, "I know they're not good for me, but I can't stop thinking about them," they are not describing weakness. They are describing a nervous system responding exactly the way evolution designed it to respond. Understanding this doesn't excuse the pattern, but it does dissolve the shame around it. And that distinction changes everything about how healing actually happens, because shame keeps you in the pattern. Understanding is what finally interrupts it. This is where Viktor Frankl's work becomes essential, not as a comforting quote, but as a genuine turning point in this story. Frankl survived some of the darkest conditions a human being can survive. And what he took from that experience wasn't a philosophy of avoiding pain, it was a philosophy of the gap. Between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there is a space, and in that space lies your freedom, not your innocence, your freedom. Most people assume awareness alone will fix a repeating pattern. It won't, not by itself. Awareness only creates the gap Frankl described. What you do inside that gap is the actual turning point. The moment you feel that old pull towards someone unpredictable, someone withholding, someone who feels disturbingly familiar in a way you can't quite name, awareness lets you pause inside that pull instead of being swept through it automatically. That pause is small. It might last only a few seconds, but it is the entire difference between repeating your history and finally rewriting it. The Stoics understood a version of this centuries earlier. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from the judgments we attach to them. And Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire while quietly writing to himself in the dark, kept returning to a similar idea: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This isn't about suppressing emotion or pretending the wound doesn't exist. It's about recognizing that the compulsive pull you feel toward familiar pain is not fate. It is a conditioned response, and conditioned responses, unlike fate, can be retrained. Jung himself believed the entire purpose of psychological development, what he called individuation, was to bring the unconscious pattern into conscious awareness piece by piece until it no longer controlled you from the shadows, not eliminated. Integrated, the goal was never to become a person without a shadow. Jung was clear that this is impossible and even undesirable. The goal was to become someone who could look directly at that shadow and choose differently anyway. This reframes the entire question this documentary opened with. The issue was never that you keep choosing people who hurt you because you are broken or unlucky or somehow destined for disappointment. The issue is that an old, wordless part of you has been running the selection process this entire time, filtering every potential partner through a childhood template you never consented to, confirming a belief about your worth that was installed before you could even speak in full sentences, chasing an ancient survival circuit that mistakes chaos for connection. None of that makes you a victim of your own mind. It makes you, for the first time, someone capable of finally seeing the mechanism clearly enough to interrupt it. Because here is what almost no one tells you about this kind of insight. The moment you can name the pattern, really name it, not as an idea you read somewhere, but as something you recognize happening in real time, in your own chest, in your own choices, you gain something you did not have before. Not immunity. Choice. The pull may still come. The familiar face may still walk into the room and feel like fate. But now there is a gap where there used to be only reflex. And inside that gap is the first moment in your life where the pattern is no longer choosing for you. So the next time you feel that unmistakable electric pull towards someone, that sense that this one feels different, that this one feels like home, ask yourself a harder question than whether you like them. Ask yourself what exactly inside you is being recognized. If this kind of psychology, the kind that doesn't just explain your mind, but actually gives you language for what you felt your entire life, resonates with you, this channel exists for exactly that. Subscribe if this is the kind of thinking you want more of.